Hey there, good evening. Welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph and I am the host of this show. This is a show that's dedicated to progressive rock, hard rock, heavy metal, and other forms of rock music. So, this is my Ben's album challenge. I know that some of you were expecting this episode to come out last Sunday. Probably would have if I hadn't been sick. However, I had to put it off while I was sick for a week, and my holidays are over now, so I'm prepared to present the album challenge. So, if for those of you who are not aware of how this works, one of my subscribers, Ben, he sends me an album via the email, and I listen to the album. I prefer albums I am not familiar with. He has sent me one that I was familiar with, and I told him, and he sent me another one. Basically, he sends me albums that I haven't heard of or I'm not that familiar with, and then I listen to them 3 or 4 times, and I kind of give my opinion of the album. You know, that's basically how it all works. For those of you who watched the first 3 episodes of this, it's been kind of a little bit of everything. I think the first one, I think they were expecting more from it, and I just never caught. I didn't like it all that much at first, and I've warmed up to it quite a bit now, and I've actually been looking for it. The second one, I liked a little better, but I haven't warmed up to it as much as the first one, so I haven't been looking for it, but if I do see it, I will buy it. Actually, I own it. That's right. That's the one I own, sorry. But I haven't been listening to it since I finished the album challenge. Just too many things to do, and it's not an album I'm putting into my playlist. The third one I like a lot and have been looking for it, but because it's not an album that got big here in North America, I'd have to get it through the imports, so it might be a project. Okay, so this fourth one, which is called the MSG, and I think it's the MSG debut album, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what it is. And for those of you who don't know what MSG is, it's Micheal Shenkar group. Okay, so I am not overly familiar with Micheal Shenkar. I know of him. I've known of him for many, many, many years. I knew he was a member of the Scorpions originally, and then he left and helped form UFO, which I also don't have a lot of familiarity with. I haven't listened to a lot of their stuff, and then he left that and formed the Micheal Shenkar group, which I'm even less familiar with. But having listened to this entire album, I definitely have some opinions about it. I listened to it now completely 4 times. The last time I really tried to think of ways to sorry, still suffering a bit from this, whatever this was. I've been trying to think of ways to explain the music so that people can understand. I think it's pretty original stuff. Like, there's a lot of stuff in here that doesn't really sound a great deal like anybody else, but there are some areas where he does cross over, and there is some similarities between his sound and other people, and I'll try to explain that as I go along. Okay, so the overall part of the album, there's 8 tracks on this album. I didn't look up who was in the band, and I didn't look up any of the great details about it. That's not the way this particular video series operates. I don't really want to know too much about the group. I didn't really want to know too much about the album itself, other than I just wanted to listen to it and give it an honest opinion. So, of course, I know that Micheal Shenkar is the leader of the band and the guitar player in this band. I also, from looking at the pictures and seeing the odd name written here, that Cozy Powell is also in this band. Cozy Powell is one of the great drummers in rock history. I know him well from Rainbow days. So anyways, having said that, the other 3 guys, they kind of feel familiar. I've looked at their name because it just lists their first names, and they look familiar, but I don't know who they are offhand, so that's good, because then I can give an honest appraisal of them. Overall, I find this album Excuse me for a sec. I find this album very heavy. It's a heavy rock. Now, if I was listening to this album back when it came out in the early 1980s, I would have classified this as heavy metal, and there wouldn't have been no discussion. It would just, that's what it was. But now that years and decades have passed, I would say this is more heavy rock, heavy metal. So it's borderline on heavy metal, but I don't really think it's a full heavy metal sound to it. But it does definitely border on heavy metal. The guitars and the drums are both really good. The riffing is good from both of them, as you might expect from those two guys. The vocals, I think, are pretty good. Like, I like the vocals quite a bit here. A couple songs I think he's fantastic on. It's got a little bit of a different sound on one or two of the tracks that doesn't sound quite the same as the overall sound. The overall sound is that of a heavy metal lead vocalist who has that high pitch, almost falsetto sound to it, and fits the music perfectly. But he has a couple songs that kind of remind me of a couple of other things, which I'll get to when we get to them. Overall, I would say the closest sound that it is to, for me, would be Whitesnake. Not 100% like Whitesnake. There are some of the stuff at the beginning sounds a little bit like that, a little bit older Whitesnake, but with the 87 production sound to it. Does that make any sense? Okay, so what does that really mean? That means it has that kind of pretty little crazy white girl sound to it, but much better production and more on the scale that you would get on the 87 album. So I guess that's the best way I can explain it. Okay, so there are 8 tracks here. It opens up with rock, Ready to Rock, heavy guitar, really good solid vocals on this, and there's a really good quality guitar solo in the album. And this is where I discovered that Cozy Powell is also on the album. So yeah, it's a pretty good rockin' song, the open up. The second song, Attack on the Attack of the Mad Axeman. I don't know what I was thinking there. It's a really great riff here in this song. Interesting sound to the vocalist. This is where I mean by the vocalist kind of has that Whitesnake, earlier Whitesnake vocal sound like that you would find on Girl. Boom, 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 boom. Pretty little crazy white girl. Yeah, he's got that kind of almost that kind of David Lee Roth kind of dry sound to his voice on this, and I like it. It really suits this song, and he's a little bit of a range. Like, he doesn't try to sound the same on every song, and this one he's a little bit more like that, which I like quite a bit. The guitar solo, of course, is really good on this. I'm just going to put my glasses on for a second. There's one last note here that I didn't read. Yeah, so yeah, just some really solid guitar soloing on it. The next song, On and On, is another song I like quite a bit. It's got that nice eerie keyboard sound at the beginning to open the song, which I like. The vocalist is real good, solid. The guitars are, the solo have that kind of that kind of 70-ish kind of guitar solo sounding that you would get from someone like, say, Ace Frehley or that, but much better. Like, I think he's kind of like a tuned up Ace Frehley, if you like. But he has certain qualities to his guitar that, even though it has that kind of 70-ish sound, there's a lot of that finger rolling that is quite common in the 80s, right? They call it tapping, I guess. He has a little bit of that, but I don't think he does any actually tapping. It just has that quality to it. Okay, Let Sleeping Dogs Lie is the next track. It's the fourth track on the album. Another track I like. Some interesting guitar riffing on this song. The vocals again are really good. I love the guitar solo at the end of the song. It kind of ends the song on a high note. Again, another strong track. The next track is probably my favorite track on this album. It was between the Attack of the Mad Axeman or But I Want More. But I think I like this. Initially, I think I liked the other one more, but this time I think I probably like But I Want More. Nice keyboard intro with an organ. I like that. I like the acoustic soft guitar opening. Then there's this heavy guitar riff and some real grinding guitar solo that really make this song great, I think. So, sorry, everybody's now texting me as they always do as soon as I get in this room. They don't answer me all day and then start texting me as soon as I start doing something. But anyways, this is probably my favorite track on the album. And to me, it is the song that kind of defines this album. I think it's the song that's most like the rest of the songs that kind of holds them all together. From this point on, it's a little bit downward. The next track, Never Trust a Stranger, is a piano opening. It's kind of a ballady song. I really didn't care for it too much, so I won't say too much about it. Looking for Love, another heavy guitar and drum part, and some interesting guitar solos on this track too, but overall a little bit of an unmemorable song too. And then it ends up with Secondary Motion, which is at the end. Heavy guitar riff, some heavy drums on this. There was one note here, I made a note of it. It does have that kind of typical of the 1980s guitar sound, but better than most. So I would say if you have 3 or 4 guitarists like April Wine or all these bands that have that kind of standard kind of guitar sound, he has that too, but he's much better than most of them. So it stands out more. Like he has this guitar sound on this particular track that kind of reminds me a bit of Rick Emmett's style. But with Rick Emmett, there's a lot more tapping going on. Not as much with him. He tends to be more traditionalist, I think, in his guitar style. Yeah, I could be wrong about all of this, right? Because I'm not a guitar person, first of all. I can listen to them. I like guitar and stuff like that, and I'm able to differentiate between some things. But especially when it comes to very hard rock that borders on heavy metal or is heavy metal altogether, I consider myself out of my element here. But this guy is one of the best guitar players from what people tell me and from what I've heard listening to him. He's definitely a top shelf guitar player, and I think he makes this album better than it would be if it was played by a more ordinary guitar player. This last song, I liked it a little better than the predecessors, but this 6, 7, and 8 song, I don't like it as much. For me, the 2 best tracks are the number 5 track, which is But I Want More, and the number 2 track, which is Attack of the Mad Axeman. Both of those are really good tracks. Probably my favorite 2 on the album. Let Sleeping Dogs Lie, On, and Ready to Rock are all good, solid tracks. So overall, the album is a good, solid album. Would I own this album? Yeah, I would definitely own this. If I see it and I can get it for a reasonable price, I would buy this. This is a group that I'm interested in learning a little bit more about. Yes, they have some of that Whitesnake, Triumph, April Wine kind of 80s heaviness to their music, but very distinctive. Like, not, even though it's like them in that way, you wouldn't mix them up. Like, you wouldn't mix it up with any of those groups. Yeah, there's a little bit of an element that sounds especially with the drummer, when they're doing a couple of parts to the track where they're doing a guitar solo, along with cozy pounding back there. It kind of kind of sounds like that Gilmore, Rick Emmett kind of combo there, but I don't think you would mix that up with Triumph, and I don't think you would mix them up with April Wine. I don't even think you would mix them up with Whitesnake, who I think they sound the most like. But they definitely fall within the range of those groups, and definitely are up there with those groups competing for, solid music. This is a solid album. If you're looking to get into this kind of early metal sound, this is a good one, because I don't think it's quite in the same box with a lot of that metal stuff of that period. It's kind of out of the box slightly, because his guitaring is so much better than a lot of those guys. Also, his guitaring is a little bit different. He doesn't do nearly the tapping that a lot of those guys did. He doesn't do those kind of solos. His solos are, I think, closer to an Ace Frehley solo than they are to a John Sykes solo. And maybe. But I don't want to give the impression that I think he's halfway between Ace Frehley and John Sykes for guitar ability. That isn't the case here at all. It's just the sound, the overall sound. I think he's probably as good or better than either of those guitar players. Well, he's definitely better than Ace Frehley. He might be better than John Sykes as well, yeah, definitely a top shelf guitar player. When I say he's close to that Ace Frehley sound, I don't mean that he's in the same league as Ace Frehley, and I don't want to deprecate Ace Frehley by suggesting he's not a good guitar player. He is. He's just not. I don't think he has quite the range that Micheal Shenkar has. Okay, so now that I've done all of that kind of hemming and hawing and trying to explain things, overall the album is good. It's heavy. There's a lot of guitar, really good guitar on here. If you like really good heavy metal guitar with great soloing, this is a good album. The rest of the band is pretty heavy and fill in. I think the vocalist is outstanding for this band. I don't know who it is, but I probably will look it up now just to see who it is. I'm sure I know who he is. I'm sure I've heard him before. His voice is very heavy metal-ish and belongs in this genre very well. But he has a little bit of different sounds too on a couple songs, which I think is good. It shows that he has some range and not just the same sound all over and over again. So there you have it. Micheal Shenkar's Groups, and I guess it's their debut album. If I'm wrong, please let me know. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and we'll be back for next week's, or not next week, 2 weeks from now, we'll be doing the next challenge that Ben has given me. It's a band I don't know nothing about. When I first heard him, when he first sent it to me, I thought, oh yeah, I know these guys. But then once I looked up, it wasn't the band I was thinking of. Wasn't even close. So yeah, we'll be giving this. I think it's called Angel City. He says the Angels, but for me, Angel was a band from the 70s, but I don't think it's that at all. I think the band's either called the Angels or it's called Angel City. It's one of the two, but I'll figure it out as we go along, and that'll be the next challenge. So looking forward to that, and I hope you, like I said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe. It's much appreciated, and we'll be back in 2 weeks' time with another Ben's Album Challenge. Great. So have a good one. Bye.